previously on Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along.
That's why I love to draw, and I wanna create Supa-Saturdays, 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 Draw-Along.
Welcome once again to Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along with me, Jerome Hinds. I'll be here with you for the next hour and a half as we continue our illustration. Hopefully you've been drawing along with me, or at least watching my techniques, etc. I'll be here, let's say, for the next hour and a half, yes. And it's 6 p.m. Eastern in the US right now. And where I am, which is Singapore, it is 6 a.m. So I have to wake up bright and early for these sessions. So first of all, let's set the mood. Play my usual track. And what have we got here? Let me focus on the drawing. We're drawing Colossal Boy. And we've gotten to the coloring stage. You saw at the beginning, if you saw the credits, you see that we've been going through the coloring, but we constructed Colossal Boy from scratch. And he's the last in my series of giant superheroes. We've done Giant Man, 2 Goliaths, Black Goliath, and Colossal Boy from DC will be the last one. Ironically, the first 4 are all from Marvel. But this chap is from DC. And last week, I was very naughty. I was racing off from doing my red rendering, and I forgot to do the highlights on my red. And I'm using a technique. Yo, what's up, Pops? The producer emeritus is in the house. I hope you're a bit more rested this week, Pops. And last week was the Kalamazoo Comic Con, and Pops was on site. And really, Madness Entertainment Group will be involved as well with I think it's the Grand Rapids Con. So more news coming up on that in the near future. So we were rendering the red hair on Colossal Boy, and I was so excited until I started. I was going to race off and not put in my highlights. So here we are using the dodge and burn technique. Now I'm going to put the light in with the dodging. And I want my dodge to have a golden overtone. So if you look here at my color palette, can you see it's in the lemony area of the yellow on the color palette? So here, my light source is coming from the front. So I'm going to put a very light tinge of yellow on the side, facing to the left. That's where our light source is. It's easy picked up on the rest of the coloring as well. So I put in what I call the basic global lighting. I'm going to put a shimmer in here. And I'm going to pull out the edge of the costume with an accent and let me zoom in tight like a target. Let me zoom in tight here, and I want an accent on the edge of that costume. Then go up here, and we continue up here. I was here early this morning with Wow Miss You. 1 a.m. in the morning. 1 a.m. on a Saturday morning. Myself and Wow Miss You here on the Madness Entertainment Group. we host a late night art attack. And while I was doing a tribute to Val Kilmer, apparently there's a new AI movie coming out, which Val Kilmer's estate gave permission to use his likeness. And I think it's listed to be the first proper AI movie featuring a known person. So that will be quite interesting to see if and when that is indeed released. That's what Raoul was drawing, and I was coloring, again, I was coloring the short story I'm doing for Sunday's Own Comics. And I just finished putting the colors in that strip. I was doing some of that earlier. Now I'm coloring here again. Now here I'm going to pick out a little highlight. These are accentuated. You don't want them too much, they can get overkill. But creative license, if you like. When exactly you do something like this and not do it, that's one of the, I suppose that comes with experience and personal taste. But there's no, of course, lighting, the light source is always the governing factor. You got to know where your light source is. Once you know that, you're halfway there to doing this kind of these extra bits, if you like. I've got a global light across the back of the hand. Get basic kind of light going on those fingers on the left side. If you were here a couple of weeks ago, I was patting myself on the back for how splendid my Jack Kirby fingers came out. So I have accents on the back of the ligaments of those muscles, of those knuckles. And again here. Knuckles, a superhero's best friend. Now, any of you out there who have any experience in digital coloring, you might be wondering why, if I'm using a mask or anything like that, actually no need to do that, because my colors are all on separate layers. And dodge and burn only affects something that's already on the canvas. So my red is only in this area. So dodge and burn is only going to see the color. So I'm just coloring directly on top. I'm dodge and burning directly on top of a solid layer of red. That makes sense? Next week, actually, Raoul, who I just mentioned, who does late night art attack with me at 1 a.m. on a Saturday morning, late Friday night, he's getting into coloring and he's curious about the technique that I use. So I think we were discussing earlier, next week we're going to have a late night art attack, which is just me and Raoul coloring the same image. And Raoul can color, don't get me wrong, but he's curious in my methodology and my thoughts on it. So next week, if you want, tune in, and me and Raoul should be working on the same piece. And in fact, if you'd like to join in with that, drop us a line here at Madness Entertainment Group. You can find us on Facebook, and either get a copy of the English team, and you can color along with us. But you have to, if you're in America, you have to be awake at 1 a.m. in the morning if you want to be part of the shenanigans. So if you're not prepared to wake up, I wouldn't bother. I wouldn't bother, son. Okay. So there's that glove. The glove is going into the light. Now, this will be a touch, shall we? Now this hand is sticking up and foreshortened, so we know it's coming towards us. Hey, speaking of devil, yeah. Remember I just mentioned to you, Raul, if there he's in the house. What's up, Raul? Okay, Raul, I don't know how long you've been there, but I was just mentioning we might be coloring the same image next week on our show. And if you confirm that, I'm inviting anyone watching this. We get in touch with us here at the Madness Entertainment Group anytime during the week, requesting a copy of the image that we'll be coloring, and they can color along with us. I remember as a kid, me and my elder brother, we used to like coloring so much until we would color the cartoon strips in the newspaper. We'd color anything we get our hands on. There's some very good colors out there in the comic industry. Very good. There's one traditional painter on, I follow her on Instagram, named Bella Ratchlin, and she does some fantastic watercoloring, stuff like that. Her sense of color, light sourcing is second to none. Her drawing is not shabby either. And I often say to my students, because I teach drawing as well and writing, I always say to my students that if you draw something and the drawing is actually quite bad, but your writing is good, you will get away with it. You will get away with that image. Lighting is super important in my opinion. Well, lighting and shapes. If you can get your shapes and lighting done well, your drawing will have some semblance of efficiency. Now, these pants are in the dark, so I'm just going to put a very slight accent on the back end. There, see that slight accent? It's in the dark, so I'm just embellishing that there slightly, but can't be too dark. Then we come to the front of the book. Look at that. We're on episode 33 of Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along. And I'm still having to remind myself to make sure I zoom in a lot, because it is better for the quality of the stream. For sure it is. Yeah, now this is facing the light source, so I'm going to put in an accent here. And coming down here. That is poking up. Right on the edge. And see that crease in the boot? Oops. I'm going to put an accent on the side that would catch the light. And use the line as the crevice, so to speak. I was boasting when I first drew these boots about how marvelously large and Gene Colan-esque they were. For all of you older comic collectors out there, you know who Gene Colan is. To any youngsters watching this, Gene Colan is a legendary artist who drew for DC and Marvel back in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. I'm not sure if he was around in the 50s. And I'm not sure if he did anything in the 90s. But he certainly did a lot in my era, which was the 1970s. And that man's boots that he would draw were amongst the biggest in comic book. The way you could draw Captain America, man, absolutely brilliant. Something that I've mentioned here on the stream before is the more you get into a technique of anything, sometimes you might find that as you get more comfortable doing it, you might actually start getting more complex. And I can see I'm adding more light as I continue. Now there, can you see that marquee that I've drawn around this area? That's because I want to put some light on this boot here, but I don't want to spill into this boot. So I have to mask off. See, I've just used the lasso tool to highlight this area. So now my color is restricted here and it won't spill into this boot. I'm going to put an accent there. Good. I'm going to put an accent on that same like the other one. Let me zoom in a bit more on that. When you're drawing digitally, it's always a good idea to zoom in. This is more like reality. Because you know, when you're drawing traditionally, you'd often move your face close to the paper, right? That is in effect zooming in. But I found that there's a natural proclivity. People naturally, for some reason, like to draw digitally. And you can see the whole image like this. It's just something that we all do kind of naturally, but actually, zooming in is much better, especially if you're drawing digitally. You might see my canvas stalling there, saving. It's because I'm doing a time lapse. Is my time lapse on? Yeah. And time lapsing, I'm using a Mac, and the software is Clip Studio Paint. And time lapsing takes up a certain amount of memory, which does take up a bit of time. Sometimes it has to save. And I know a lot of people out there use Procreate, and I met up with a friend of mine, an ex-teacher here at the association in Singapore, and he was showing me his time lapses on Procreate. And from what I can get, he uses an iPad. But it looks like if Procreate does this a lot more easily than Clip Studio Paint, he's automatically time lapses in it. In no way slows him down remotely. So Procreate seems to be quite powerful in that respect. Good. I think that's it for our bits. And working digitally, there's always a danger that we get complacent. And I have a saying here, what do I always shout here if you've been here before?
Save!
Say it again.
Save!
That's right, you gotta save. I've got some horror stories regarding not saving and computers losing my work. Terrible stuff. Okay, so next, let's go and do his hair. So you see I've got the hair layer here. I'm going to duplicate that. Exactly. And I want to shade this with an aspect of brown, dark brown. So I'm going to put my color picker here and see how that looks. Whoops, sorry. Burning. Color burning. Okay, that looks all right. Now I've got a Sharp TV here. Sharp, the brand. And it's a little bit pixelated. and it's not showing up. I'm looking at my other monitor here, which is the Sharp TV, and it's not really showing up this brown that well. It's not the newest of TVs, so I dare say the calibration probably isn't up to much. Put in the shadow as the hair goes into the skull. The light is coming from the left, as we've established. Put the shadow in here. Good, that's it. When I was shading my comic, coloring my comic in the last few days, and I do all of my colors at once. And the fact that there's only one set of hair in this color to do, making me feel a bit strange, because I've been having, in recent days, I've been going page to page to page. I'm coloring the same group of hair, but now there's only one, which seems a bit odd. Now color dodge, and I want this quite yellow. I want quite a golden finish on this. An accent there, accent here. The light's coming from that side. It's going to catch the criff there, the edge here, and catch a bit of the inside here. Maybe a little bit's going to seep in there. Let's see if we can pull out an accent of some kind. Accent here. There, right on the edge. There. Accent, top of the head. Top of the head. Now I'm just looking at my other monitor here, and it's really showing up these accents. I'm not sure what your viewing is on, but my Sharp TV is a little bit different to my Cintiq. Good. And once again, we're going to
save.
All right. So we're left with the flesh, the whites of the teeth and the eyes, and the eyeballs. So next, I'm going to go for the secondary flesh. That's the tongue, and there's little crevices by the eyes. For those, I'm going to go to a fresh color in the color picker. So I'm going to put the picker, see here on the left, I'm going to place the color picker going towards the gray, but slightly in, very, very pastellated red. So I'm going to shade the back of the tongue. Whoops, sorry, we start with brown. It's the one dodge. Put a shadow at the back of the tongue. In the inner eye, just want to make it a little bit darker, nothing much. And then for the highlight, I'm going to put it into the extreme white and just get dodge. Just put a slight highlight on that top. Wow, that's very bright on my Sharp monitor. Amazing. Amazing. And let's shade the white. We do the flesh last. Let's shade the white of the eyes and the teeth. Now here, I'm just going for a neutral gray shading with the color burn. With the teeth, we want a shadow at the back of the teeth. Notice I duplicated the layer. Always duplicate the color layer. And the shadow inside the mouth. So I always do my burning first, my shadows. Now for the eyes, you always want a shadow from the eyelid. So the top part of the whites of the eye, put that in darkness. Just the top part. This can make a huge difference to the presence of your image. I used to do, but I still do, a lot of caricature. And if you want to bring the eyes to life of your subject, be sure to put that shadowing at the top of the whites of the eye. And I'm going to reverse now for the color dodge. My pick is into full white. And we're going to put out these amazing dentures. Well, not dentures. His amazing teeth. I'm assuming Colossal Boy didn't have dentures. He was a young man. He was a boy. Come to the eyes. Now, the first thing, the highlight in the pupil. That's going to be absolute white. So we render that in. Then we make the bottom part, center part especially, white. Changing the size of my paint, of my airbrush accordingly. And we put an accent in part of the white. There, center part of the white. Make that extremely white. Just going to lessen the shadow a bit. Just dodge over the shadow and knock it back slightly. Checking on, wow, this shadow is so dark on my other monitor. Amazing. Let's go for the eyes. Here's the eyes brown. Okay. And I want an aspect of burgundy on this brown. So you see my color picker? I'm putting it into the middle here. When you're burning, where you put the color picker on the spectrum here can make a huge difference to how that reacts with your base color. And it's very hard to explain, but a lot of it is trial and error. But after a while, you get used to it. So there's that, at least zooming on the eyes. See, I'm putting a burgundy brown. That's my burn. And my highlight, what I like to do is color dodge. I go to yellow, quite rich yellow, and I put out just a little bit of that in yellow. Because you've got brown eyes. I like this effect on the eyes. Which now please, let me double check I've not missed anything. The only part of his flesh that's showing is indeed his face. So let's get to shading his face. Now I would say with the dodge and burn technique, flesh color, Caucasian flesh color is one of the trickier ones to get right. Now I want properties of brown going to pink. So I'm going to put my color picker there, see how this looks. First of all, we want a global shadow on the right side of his face. So there's my burn. There. Side of the nose. The light is coming from the left, correct? Inside of the nose. I always put my global shadows in first. That's the big shadows. Then I get to this, the finer detail, secondary. For the jaw, accent the nose. This is the darkness here. Concentrate the shadow, cast the nose shadow on this side. Dodging. Of course, you can always change the colors later as well. You can fine tune exactly your colors at the end. But I do like to try to get things as accurately as possible. So retouching is at a minimum. Retouching is at a minimum. Good. Show here. That is facing the light. There still will be some slight crevice in the face there. Put a shadow on the inside of the mouth here. Put the lower lip. Put the shadow on this side. It goes to the chin. Lower chin. Got a cleft in his chin, like the legendary actor Kirk Douglas, whose son, Michael Douglas, I believe has the same cleft in his chin. Yeah. How's it looking on my sharp one? My goodness, those colors are terrible on the sharp. I hope your monitors at home are better than this. I must invest in a better secondary monitor. Dear God, I had a Philips TV that I was using for years, but that just died a death on me the other day for some reason. And luckily, this old Sharp TV is still in the house, not being used by anyone. And this digital art business can be a bit rough on monitors. Yeah, that I do for the dark bits. And slightly fleshy, but very quite white for the dodging. And again, we start with a big light. Let's pull his cheek out. It's facing the light, as is this jaw. Upper lip, slightly. The ball of the eye. And the hairs will catch some light on the edge of the face. With an angry expression. So we catch just a little bit of that expression there. The outer nose. And the accent his nose, his cheek, so we catch a little bit of light. That will be in the eye. It's not a super detailed illustration, so I'm not going to go too overboard with the lighting here. We catch the edge of that mouth there. Yeah, I think that's pretty much there. I think that's the end of our course board. I'm going to say. Now the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to export with animation. And export the time lapse. There you can see it going through the stages. I'm going to say OK. There we're exporting. I start at different stages. You got the pencil construction, you got your base colors, and then you got your color effects. So I started again at the color effects stage. That's where I started again. And we got that going in there. We just call up. I'm going to add this into another file, which is this one. Good, that's exported. And I'm making a huge. Now here's what we've been doing over the past few weeks, right? I think the first one we did was Giant Man at the back. Then we did Supa. Then it's Goliath. I think we did Goliath first. Then we did Giant Man, which was a style of illustration with no hatching, just solid blanks. Then we did Goliath versus Black Goliath, all the giant guys. And now you can see as a placeholder here, I'm going to put Colossal Boy in here. So let's go over here. Here's our Colossal Boy. I'm going to put them all into a folder. Call it Colossal Boy. Colossal Boy comes. There it is. Select all. Copy. Put it over here. Here's my Colossal Boy placeholder. Paste. So here's my Colossal Boy. I just have to put it at the right size now. I've created a shadow for the placeholder. I will put that onto this Colossal Boy when he's in position. So let's. I've named this the Ultimate Clash of the Goliaths. That's the name of this file. There, move into position, use my cursor key, nudge it over. It's lagging a bit. It's quite a big file, this. Oh no, get wandering. Okay, slow down, boy, slow down. There, I need to be slightly bigger. Move it up slightly. Doesn't have to be exactly the same. That's close enough. Make it a little bit smoother. There. And hit enter. Now clip Studio Paint, there it is. Oh, that was fast. Okay, so now the Colossal Boy here. I want the shadow. Put the shadow into the new folder. And I can remove my placeholder now. Have this in position. I did have it as blue. So there, that's the end of this project of all of the different giant people. Now, did I need more of construction with these guys? No. So we can have a brief recap on the Colossal Boy. Right, that's the colors, right? But let's go back to how we constructed it. I did this for all of them. We start with the skeleton. Then we do the fleshing out. And here, I went into a bit of anatomy immediately. Then we do the dimensions. We make sure we know where the science of everything is. Then we find the center of each part of the anatomy. I did those with blue lines. Then the contours to make sure we know the direction of everything. Then we went to the detail, that's the costume. So now we can actually draw, we can switch off the construction. That was our sketch. Then we did the spotting. That was our pencil sketch. And after that, we went into our inking and coloring, and that's how we got to this. So how are we doing for time? 6:40. Oh, we still got 50 minutes left. Okay, good. So let's go back and look at our composition poster of all of the giants, all of the big guys. I was tempted to put a background on this, but I just couldn't think what to do. Like some buildings or something. I might still do that. But here is the large canvas. So I'm going to save this. export JPEG. We're in Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along episode 33. Onto my Clash of the Nights JPEG. Save. Okay. Good. I will make my trailer with that now. And the same, I will go in here and will save this. Export, save it JPEG. And I will save this as Colossal Boy rendered JPEG. Save. Good. So that's the end of this project. And something that I would like to explore now is inking. Hold on. It's construction and it's inking of hands as well. Now, I've been producing a book for Thunderzone Comics. Now, what have I got? I've lost my file. What a clever young man. Never mind. I shall go here. I shall open. And let's find my tutorial book. For the desktop, there's Thunderzone. Art book. Art book comic 1. So we open here. And this was part of the Kickstarter that was recently done. And you can get a copy of this. This is the first, this is chapter 1 of how to draw characters from the Thunderzone. So you can see all the pages that I produced. And what I want to open here is a page on hands. So let's pick on this hand. Let's see the different lists. This is in the book that I did. So I'm going to come in here, and what I want to do is look at the inking of hands, right? So I'm going to select these and get myself a new document. Paste. Here's my hands. And let's go through some inking disciplines. So these actually came from some of the commissions that I done for Thunderzone Comics. Oh no, it's happened again. My Cintiq is messing around. It wants to crash. I thought it was going to crash then. Okay, so this is not these back, shall we? We're going to go to some inking. And first thing here, with Clip Studio Paint, when you're inking something traditionally, on a piece of paper, I find in many respects that it's easier in digital because you've got an automatic stabilization, believe it or not. When you're inking digitally, it's easy for your hands to go off. Now in Clip Studio Paint, there's something called stabilization. Here it is. I normally put mine at 90. Now if you put it at 0, you can get a different effect with your inking. So let me show you what I mean. If you want your inking to have a more organic, rough edge, you don't want any stabilization. And this fits certain art styles. If you want it a bit more rustic and organic, you could say. Here you should not use any stabilization with this style of inking. You won't get the edges that you're after. there. So I use this depending on what I'm drawing. I may not use any stabilization at all. Now I do prefer, to some extent, the look of stabilization, but sometimes I'm in the mood to do a different kind of art style. I will switch off this stabilization and ink in more of this kind of attitude. Which I kind of like as well. So let's ink the hand below using stabilization. So zoom in. I'm going to take my stabilization up to 90. So this can be smooth. Now you see I can't move fast. Can you see the lagging? It lags. So this is good if you want a smooth line. Big, big, big. This is more my natural style, but I found in later years, something that I'm drawing, I want more in the style of what I just did above, a bit more edgy. There was a comic artist from the 1990s especially, named Jeff Matsuda. And I think from that name you can guess he's probably part Japanese, or Japanese totally. And he had a lot of manga disciplines. And he would ink in a way that was very edgy, or pencil in a way that was very edgy. And I thought he was an absolutely fantastic comic artist. I think he went off to work in animation. If I'm not mistaken, he did a lot of the character designs for the adventures, the Jackie Chan adventures. So here, thin, thick, thin, thick. And see that line going into that line. You want that line to join. Quite often, I found with students, when a line meets another line, they sometimes what I call bottling. They stop short. But you want your lines to connect definitively. The knuckle. There, that's inking with a smoother line. I like the raised index finger. Now I'm going to ink this next one with a dead weight line. That's a line that's going to have very little variation. I'm going to come in and press one way all the way. This is very much more of a vector kind of effect. It starts from thin, but then it gets to one way. Start with thin again. Yeah. I find inking to be a very interesting subject. I don't see much of it in the way of tutorials, you could say. I mean, they're out there, but they're not so commonly found. I found. Got to take a pin on the knuckle. Raise finger again. Yeah, that's the dead weight line. Switch off that. Now you can see this has been sketched with little stability. So I'm going to ink this with no stabilization. Pick a pen for this. I do like this effect. I thought I was quite set in my art style preferences. What's it they say? You can't teach an old dog new tricks. That might be true to some degree, but I did enjoy the rediscovery of different things that I wasn't used to doing. No, I actually thought you had to pencil in one style all the time. I never considered that depending on what you're drawing, you may want a different look. And for this last one, well, write that real quick. For this last one, let's go for smooth inking. What's this? Come in, thin, thick, thin, thick. The thin and thick thing is one aspect of inking that I've seen gives a lot of trouble to some of my students. And when it's using a traditional brush, or digitally, or using a pen, because there's some really nice pens called micron pens. And you can, of course, a brush will give you a greater variance of line, but you can vary your lines with pens, depending on how you hold it. And I've seen this cause a few problems for some of my students, and myself included. I have to say that the thing that took me the longest to get half decent at was the thick and thin thing and hatching. And I'm going to look at that as the next part of this little demo. There, so here we got 5 fists. And I'm going to do something now that here's the first fist. That's very interesting. I'm going to render I'm going to go through a quick exercise in quick spotting areas of shadow. So let me just change the color of each one. Okay, so with the first one, call this GT, red. So let's imagine a light source is coming from the right. And you can get the lasso tool, and you can try this at home. Right, the light source is coming from the right. So we can do this, infinity back. And this can be a very quick way to ink a comic to shade a comic, because you can then change the opacity to be a shade of gray. And I've done this on a number of commissions, and it's worked quite well. And it can be very fast. So the light source is coming from the right. I'm putting an accent at the edge, so nothing goes to the edge. So let me put this back to back first. And what you don't want to do is you never want to contradict the light source. Okay? I'm going to say that this is going to cast a shadow on that cloud. So now here, we're in the crevice between the fingers. This reminds me of one of my favorite artists, a gentleman by the name of Jim Starlin. The shape that he drew on fists was fantastic. And again, inside, darkness, and accent. Same here again. And this, if you want, I will add a color after this. Just a little bit more there. Good. So there's a basic marquee shading. So let's put a color in this glove. Let's make the glove. Let's make the glove blue. Okay. Let me do it the time. Let's have a time with this stuff. I have a mental blank here. Oh yes, we still got half an hour. Good. So here, I'm going to put in a base color. Base color. And refer to all layers. So with this big area, I can just drop in my color. And just check if I haven't got any gaps there. So now, when we put the shadow on, if we put this at the shade, let's say 40% there. And it's like a bit of see the bulge at the finger there. Now when you got this, by the same token, you can add in a highlight in the other direction using white. So I'm going to make another layer and call it light. I'm going to get white in my color picker. So let's see. White, pick up this here. And you can now play with the opacity in that. Okay, so we pick up the knuckle. Oops, put in my last piece of shading. I clicked something there, didn't I? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. As I mentioned, this is a vector, a bit of a vector discipline style of coloring. And it's also, if you actually look at the style of coloring within manga, it's the shading is a bit within this discipline, you could say. But it's something that's worth experimenting with. You can get some good effects with these blocks of light and dark. Base color. I was wondering what was doing on me. My base color is supposed to be under my inking. My lighting was on top of the inking. Wait, something's not right there. Hang on, I've done it again. Hang on. Wrong layer, boy. There's my light. Please. Yeah, get rid of that. Get that out of the way. Good, and a raised finger. I do like the raised finger. I was courtesy of a gentleman named Gil Kane, my favorite comic artist of all time. Okay. So I'm going to you can change the opacity of that. I'm going to drop it down a bit to say 30%. There. That's a very quick way that you can shade color and shade an image. Basic. Got to get your basic shapes right, of course. No, as you saw here, let me save this. Desktop. Man, this entertainment group. Streaming. Episodes. You see the way I'm thinking. Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along. Episode 33. Is that correct? Is it episode 33? I think it is right. Yes, it is. And demos. Good. Good. And you saw here, there's the raw constructions of how we actually produce the hands. And then here, we went through the inking and the simple way of coloring. And we changed cut these layers to pseudo paint lets you choose the color of the layers. There. Now for this next hand, I'm going to, let's go through an inking exercise, shall we? Let's say the light source is coming. Okay, let's keep light source on the same side. And we've explored this before on Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along. We're going to start a fresh construction of a character next week. But I want to continue with this multidisciplinary thing. As I find it's nice to switch things up. Right, so here, consistency of hatching something that I want to look at. So here, I'm going to pick up the light going in that direction. There, there. I'm going to come underneath. If you've been watching any past episodes, I've been talking a lot about something that I call parallel inking, as opposed to spikes. Now this one, I'm going to focus on spikes, on the spike technique. Parallel is when the line goes like this to the black. I've been doing a lot of that, but I've not been doing much spiking. So I'm going to have a quick look at the spiking exercise. So let's say another light source is coming in from the other side. Spiking it this way. Now this line, on this side, the secondary light source can be done with a solid straight line. But I want to try a double spike on this exercise. Now, if you look at a lot of modern comics, there's no more hatching. And I think it's probably because this does take a long time, right? It's like with most things. Anything that can make the process quicker tends to win out. You consider that people like Shakespeare would write all of their manuscripts by hand. Then along came a typewriter. And if you were going to produce a play and not use a typewriter, I think people would think you're insane. And I think something similar has happened to art. Some of the traditional techniques look very nice, but the publishers don't need to spend such a volume of time doing something like that. So you can say it's a bit of a lost art form, you could say. But look at lettering. Lettering used to be an art form. Then along came the computer, and lettering simply isn't done by hand anymore. The computer does it. Bit different to hatching, I know, on an image, but I think the principle is similar. So I'm going to make kind of a backline on this. On this face. Now I've gone straight in with my rendering. Okay, I haven't done any. I've not done any sketching, because I just want to look at the technique of the inking. And if you're watching this at home and you want to draw along with this kind of stuff, get in touch with us here at the MadLad Entertainment Group on Facebook, and we see to it that you receive some notes that you can draw along with us. So here's a background, the back of the face. So, this is a very kind of very illustrative style of hatching. This is, I mean, most comics were not even this extreme. Some of the stuff in European comics, like 2000 AD, which was a black and white comic published in UK in the 1970s and 80s, even into the 90s. And you often get some artists in there with some very definitive styles of black and white art. And you could find people with rendering this extreme. And I remember, I've told this story on here before, I went to the studio when I was very young, and I saw some of the original inks of Judge Dredd by the great Brian Bottom. And the inking, which of course was traditional, not digital, the inking was off the scale. And he very much had this style of ring. So I've enclosed this space, these two spaces. I can get the paint bucket now and fill them with black. There's going to be a few specks that are left. So you must go in and do your retouching. There. Oops. This is meant to be black as well. Because where you've got the spikes, when it comes into a sharp point, the paint bucket can't get in there, you see. First finger, thumb, thumb. There. So now we're going to come into the light. So I'm going to put like a crevice in the face, I call it. Let's go into the light there, and it's going to come back up. Now we want to make sure that we get the volume of the face correct. Got a bit of gradation printed inking there mixed in. So you will put short palms on this one. Here. It's what I call shading in the direction of an object. Good. Yeah, you can put it. Things like that. Yeah. Remember, the light source is coming from the light. And here. Kind of go and start like that. Right. But then come up from the darkness in right here. Let's go to the light. So there's no, I'm going to show you a different accent on one of the other fists. So here this comes into the light here. Everything going into the light is done with spikes, hatching. So we get from the dark to the light. There's so many different styles of hatching in the world. I mean, if you look at some old illustrations, engravers, wow, some of that hatching is unbelievable. So I'm being a bit extreme here, but this is just to look closer. Alright, now see this. This is something that's unique to comics. When you've got a vertical, the hatching direction changes. And we'll do that there. Good. This finger's nearest to the light. The stabilization, very helpful in this kind of exercise. Let's do our spotting. Drop that in. How would that be? Okay. So there we have a very different kind of different style of rendering, which is all spikes leading from dark to light. Now I want to try a different one here, where we use this average. Digital etiquette of focus. Making sure all your layers are well sorted out. Now I'm going to have a light source coming from the left. So let's practice some gradation inking on this fist. With the light source coming from the left. Open in here. Shadow in there. There. So we're going to spot, what we're doing is we're spotting first. We're putting in the large areas black. Then the gradation shading we do after. There. Change the shape of that. Put a curve on it. Good. There. There. Put some sinews. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, so the things that we do in comics is so ridiculous. You can show the sinews through a glove of a hand, which of course makes absolutely no sense. But therein lies the beauty of comic books. Solid accent behind there. We'll bring it to a close there, and then this coming down, make that there. Okay. So I think we've got our solids. So this spot is dropping the blanks. Oops, I need to put in another line here. Make sure we get that crease. Okay, good. Now just to retouch, because we have some spikes there, and the paint bucket couldn't get inside. So here's what I'm talking about gradation. There, oops, look at that, I forgot one bit spotting here. I forgot to do that. I wonder if any of you noticed that. I'm notorious for that. Racing off and not finishing something. Dave! Oh my goodness, how long have we got left? 10 minutes. Okay, oh. Time is not going so fast this week. Comment there. Oh, heads up for how much about that. So I've got a few ads to run. So I'm just going to shade this. Then I'm going to wrap up, and next week we're going to start another exercise. But here, for gradation, right, here's something I like to do. It's an extreme thick, thin, thick, thin thing. I'm going to set this on a separate layer as well. Thick, thin, thick. But I'm increasing the distance. Let's do it again. This one goes into nothing. And it's going to go in the other direction. Okay. This is a style of inking I was totally not aware of until I started looking at some guys over at Image Comics. Oops, sorry. Let's do this again. Let's do this again. Then thick, thin. And they had a slightly different discipline of rendering that I'd never seen before. And it was kind of something like this. And I do like it. If you spend many years doing something a particular way, then something that you'll find that you're drawn to something different. It can be a bit harrowing. Put some of the back of the hands. Let's go into the light, parallel to the inking. I do like this effect. It's also less work than the other one I showed you before, the spikes. And I think this is maybe how they devised more of this style of inking. I think it saved time. Good. So that's a bit of ink rendering stuff. And next week, we're going to start on a new exercise in drawing. I'm going to do something a bit different. So I'm going to spend the next week thinking about that. But have your pencils, stylus, and pens at the ready. We're going to start on a new exercise next week. Meanwhile, if you can practice some of those things we just did with the fists, that would be great. I'm just going to run a couple of ads here. And I'm going to see you back here, same time, same place, next week on Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along. Peace.
Ozzy, what are you doing? Come and have a look at this lovely book that was sent over.
You're wrapping in the burning.
Oh, go on and spit the bat out your mouth. No one can understand you like that.
Say how 5 dentists and all.
Oh, well, that's not much better. Ozzy, why don't you sing to me? I can always understand you when you sing to me.
Fucking my brains. What is this my publisher sent me? Inked in black with art so sweet.
So what do you think? Do you like it?
Oh, Lord, yeah.
If you like stories about truth, honor, and justice, then you should check out MAGA Man. It is Donald Trump as many now see him, the defender of justice and a warrior for peace through strength. MAGA Man is an all-American style 22-page comic book, so get over to fundmycomic.com and support the culture of truth, honor, and justice. With MAGA Man, the most needed hero of all. MAGA Man.
Thunder Zone Comics returns. 5 all-new comics: Sumo Boy, Weirdo, Marshall Strong, Big House Blues, and SupaCross, plus a free how to draw characters from the Thunder Zone. When you back all 5 new releases, the Kickstarter campaign is live now.
Previously on Late Night Art Attack.
If you missed the live viewing of any Meg production, you can find all our content on Roku or as a member of this channel. Madness Entertainment Group.